Courtney, stay right there. For more, let's talk about the store experience with our next guest, the impact on the consumer this holiday season. Let's bring in Sandra Campos. She's founder of Fashion Launchpad and a CNBC contributor. So, Sandra, I'm with Tyler. I might have to be hitting the stores in person Saturday for some desperate last-minute shopping. And do you think that stores are kind of putting themselves out of business? I mean, this jibes perfectly with Steve Leisman's consumer survey last hour that found, it's all about online. It's more and more we're heading that way.
More and more we're heading that way, but, loss prevention and customer experience really have gone hand in hand. When you talk about what the crappy experience is, there's some retailers like Uniqlo that's actually having a positive self-service experience, and 90% of their stores are having self-service options.
I love those checkouts, by the way, the RFID. Can we get those in every grocery store and every place in America?
Yeah, and then you have Walmart as an example, bringing more staff back to cash registers. So you're seeing a very different type of approach right now, but we definitely have sales teams that are being stressed. And as you said, they have to be more proactive, identifying some of those potential issues and trying to mitigate losses. But, you mentioned some of the issues and the theft issues that you've actually seen in person, but some of the external theft really is about 35 to 45% of the shrink, but internal theft actually accounts for 30-40% of it as well. Wow. So, products being locked and gated, but we've also come out of a couple of years of some challenging supply chain deliveries. And we've had in the past year a real reduction in terms of what the inventory is in stores right now, because retailers are challenged to be more profitable. So they have to get the right amount of goods in the stores and not have too much.
Are we just going to have to get used to the idea over the next generation that merchandise is going to be locked up because of theft? Or is the solution stricter enforcement of the law within the stores? Or are stores going to have to hire off-duty police officers to arrest people? What's the solution here?
Well, that's the $1 million question, isn't it? Or the $10 million question. But the reality is that there do have to be changes on both sides. Laws definitely have to be impacting, because at this point, if you can walk into a store and be brazen enough to grab an entire rack and walk out the store with it, you have no consequences. You're not worried about it. So that's been a lot of what's been happening. On the other hand, obviously, stores do have less sales staff in the stores, and that's because they're trying to have profitability. They're lowering their operating expenses, which in turn relates to having fewer staff in the stores. So we have to have a balance. Definitely technology is going to be playing some impact there. There's a company, Ubic, that's actually helping to be able to reinforce and help the salespeople work with more customers instead of spending more time on the administrative aspects of it. They're also helping them try to mitigate some of those losses by predicting and being able to really be on top of some of that potential theft in stores. Mm-hmm. But it's challenging. This is not easy. It's not easy for people working in stores. It's not easy for management to try to determine what that solution actually is.
Court, I guess I don't want me to pretend to speak for most people, but I think an awful lot of shoppers who go to stores would say, well, if somebody takes something, they ought to have a consequence. They ought to be arrested. They ought to get a citation for that. They ought to have some consequence. You shouldn't just be able to do that and ruin a business, ruin the experience of honest shoppers because they're afraid to go into a store because of theft bands of thieves and so forth.
I mean, I think that is probably true in a lot of cases. Whenever we talk about this, it does sort of turn into a political chess match, for lack of a better word, because different municipalities enforce this in different ways. And frankly, the facts do bear out that the higher the felony threshold is, often more you will see more theft in those areas. The criminals understand,
in
as
other words,
Sandra was saying.
The felony threshold is, in other words, it's not a felony if the value of the goods taken is not more than $1,000.
Exactly. So they'll walk out with $950, and the next day they'll do it again. Mm-hmm. So there is a piece of legislation that has been proposed, but it has not gone through committee, that would try to impose a federal standard that aggregates the stolen good value to $5,000 over the course of any 12-month period, and then that could be a felony that a local prosecutor could seek to levy. So a lot of this does unfortunately become very political, and it has to do with enforcement. But yeah, when you see it, especially when you're with your kids, it's pretty startling. None of us want to have to deal with locked up
cases. What do the stores say? What do the Targets, the Walmarts, the Kohl's, the Macy's, what do they say about it? What do they want to see done?
So almost everyone that we've talked to from the retail side say that they're doing what they can, but they acknowledge that there's only so much they can do and that they believe that they also need help from local law enforcement and beyond. Yeah. And at the same time, the local law enforcement say the same thing from the retailers. In a lot of cases, retailers will start to give information to law enforcement about criminals that are sort of repeat criminals so that law enforcement can begin to build a case. But they're complicated and they take a really long time.
All right, got to leave it there. Courtney Reagen, Sandra Campos, thank you very much. We appreciate it.